Alright guys, so this is our in-depth look at the 2019 Can Am Outlander 1000r. We've got about 500 miles on this machine so far. Flying Brian's been kind enough to let me borrow it for the week while the Sportsman's out with the front diff issue. So I've got some quality seat time on the Outlander. So obviously this is the base model 1000R. Flying Brian's not one to sit still on it for long. He does have some upgrades I want to point out. He's got the brush guard up front, he's got the 3,500 pound winch. He does have the Yoshimura exhaust, hopefully you guys saw that in the video. Put a bomb tuner on it after he put the exhaust on there. I think that's pretty much it for mods. We point that out in case you're watching the videos and you hear the sound or you see the brush guard, you see he's using the winch. Those things didn't come standard. The XT version of the Can Am Outlander, I would say, is a good comparison to the Sportsman Premium Edition. And then Can Am kind of goes above and beyond with the XTP models and the XXC models as ultra premium options on the Outlander 1000. Now, all that being said, I would still consider this a premium ATV. It has some of the features that go above and beyond any standard machine. One of those features being the tri-mode DPS. Push of the button where the overdrive is on most four-wheelers switches you between 3 modes of varying electronic power steering assist. It's also got the intelligent throttle control. 3 different modes, 2 different keys. You've got multiple options for throttle response. So right away, pros on this machine, definitely going to be the motor. First and foremost, that Rotax 972cc motor is the biggest, most powerful ATV motor on the market. Definitely more powerful than the Sportsman and definitely clutched a little bit more aggressively. Another thing I've grown to love on this machine that I didn't like at first when we initially did the review against the Sportsman was a stiffer setup on the suspension at base. The suspension definitely feels much stiffer than the Sportsman at the base setup, but once you get running a little bit aggressive over chop and on trails, the suspension is perfect. It can take a little bit of air with a bigger rider. And land plush and smooth. I definitely learned a few things from this machine about proper suspension adjustment on the trail, and I'm definitely going to make some adjustments on the Sportsman when I get it back. We know some of you guys are going to have comments on the Visco lock. True four-wheel drive with locking diff is probably everybody's idea, but the Visco lock works pretty well. I still like Polaris's all-wheel drive setup better, but unless we're really trying to trip up the Visco lock, it's pretty hard to do. For aggressive trail riding, it's going to get the job done. So we mentioned this before on the initial pickup and walk around of this machine, but these ITP Terracross tires are really impressive, and they hook up and go for the rocky trail situations we got around here. Aftermarket, you might pick up something a little bit stronger, maybe a little bit different tread pattern, but on a stock machine, these Terracrosses are awesome. Definitely base model to base model comparison, a huge improvement over the stock CSTs that Polaris throws on their machines. There's absolutely no situation you can get yourself into with this ATV where you would want for more power. So let's talk a little bit about racks and storage. These racks are decent. They are reinforced in some areas. For the most part, plastic on the sides here. Lots of hookup points for bungee cords and whatnot. Brian has the lock and ride cooler for the back, and I know he really likes that. That works well. One thing it's missing that the Sportsman has are those steel, almost like handles that pop up about 2 inches in addition. I really like those on the Polaris. This machine doesn't have them. but still decent rack. Absolutely no front storage at all whatsoever. That is a negative for some people, but you can definitely mount or attach stuff to this front rack. As for rear storage, you basically just have this turkey roaster in the back. That's actually pretty deep. It would hold some tools and tow strap or something relatively easily, but it's not great storage. The Sportsman storage in the back isn't great either. It will get hot. It will get very, very hot on both machines. That rear storage is just vulnerable to heat. But speaking of heat, this machine doesn't mind to fry you. So Brian does have the Yoshimura on there. He got the Boss tuner, the Bomb tuner. The point of that tuner was to keep the heat down a little bit. The heat that comes out from next to that clutch area, the exhaust runs right over top, right through here, is almost unbearable. I rode last Saturday. It was a pretty hot day. I was in shorts, which was stupid, but it was 90 degrees outside. My leg was almost getting blistered. It pumps out so much heat, and Brian said that's actually an improvement. I know it threw out heat when it was still base, but part of the reason is he updated to that Yoshimura exhaust, which made it run lean, made it run hot, but it was still hot running to begin with. So that might be something you want to consider. With this machine, the Polaris runs super hot as well, especially when it's in low. And Brian and I have talked about maybe taking this back apart and wrapping the pipe on it to help with the heat a little bit. Maybe that would help. So another dislike for me on this machine, and remember guys, we are nitpicking here because we're trying to show you everything that we have thought about while riding this machine. But the throttle, the start of the throttle is kind of awkward. You usually grip here. Your thumb has to be almost full extended back to be able to touch the throttle, as opposed to being maybe up here would be a little bit more natural. And then the throttle push is just a little bit awkward and goes further than you would expect it to go. Just throttle placement, throttle shape. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but the throttle just feels a little bit goofy. I think it could be better thought out. We've heard other people say that too, so not just a nitpicky thing, and it's probably something that you get used to. I doubt Brian notices it anymore. But sliding down just a little bit, the shifter is great. It's fantastic. It works well. It's smooth. The clutch is smooth engagement. Having the Sportsman, I can appreciate that. The Sportsman is tough to shift sometimes and certain scenarios. This works well most of the time. When I was shifting it to park, sometimes it would act like it was going into park, and then as it settled, I would hear it click and kind of pop into park. But for the most part, very smooth shifting transmission. The placement on this, you can see that the profile on the right hand side is very similar to the profile on the left hand side. I like that. The Sportsman's a little bit different. This is a little bit more, back up so you can see it. This is a little bit more symmetrical.
Symmetry. According to some researchers, symmetry is super sexy.
Which is just kind of more pleasing to the eye, I guess, and it makes you feel a little bit, I don't know.
It's sexy.
One of the things that was more awkward to get used to was how elongated this front end is. That's a lot more front end than you get on the Sportsman. It makes it look entirely different, almost snowmobile-like. And it kind of tricked me out when we were going through rutted terrain where the rut would run kind of latitude across the trail. The front end would dip down, to me, what felt like illogically far, just because the front end stuck out so far. It never bottomed out. It wasn't an issue. It was just weird for me to see the nose dive so hard over chop that I've run through 100 times on the Sportsman. Just a visual effect, something that you would definitely get used to after a while. But the long front end, still feels great in the cockpit. It feels like it's balanced correctly. So the 2-inch receiver back here that Brian went ahead and put the ball in so he can pull his trailer around definitely gives the advantage to the Outlander and in workability over the Sportsman. That's something we really like. Brian uses the trailer for work around his house, makes this machine definitely more workable. I would say that the people in the market for a machine this big and this capable aren't thinking work first. If you get a machine like this, the fun factor is through the roof. You know, I just can't imagine getting a machine this big or this capable and not just wanting to absolutely rail it through the trails. More so than wanting to pick up sticks around your backyard. That's really, this thing was made for performance, and it's fun. One of the criticisms we've gotten online about the Outlander is that they all look the same. That's absolutely true. We agree 100%. This looks exactly like the 650 that was right next to it. The one distinctive factor is that it says 1000R on both sides. I personally would like at least a few more stickers, or maybe differentiate by color option the way Polaris does. But there's a lot of real estate right there for a nice Outlander 1000R or DPS sticker. I know they're trying to keep the price competitive, but get your Outlander sticker, your Can Am sticker, and then one place says 1000R. Other than that, it could be anything. They do all look the same. I think the chassis is the same from the 650 and up. I'm sure somebody will correct me if it's not on this, but that is an excellent point. Now, when you upgrade, when you go to the XT, the XTP, or the XXC, those are bad to the bone looking machines. Definitely awesome. So the biggest problem we've had with this machine so far has been the brakes. If you saw our last video from our Hatfield McCoy trip, you'll know that Flying Brian lost the front brakes at around 250 to maybe 300 miles on this machine. The brake pads wore all the way down, causing the pistons to bust through the pads, damage the calipers. And again, that happened at or below 300 miles. We like to ride aggressive, but I wouldn't say that Brian's been overly aggressive on the brakes whatsoever. This machine has engine braking that basically does all the thinking for you, especially on steep descents. There's no need to milk the brakes, so we don't know why they wore out so fast. One theory from the dealership is that the brakes weren't bled properly. This could have caused them to go out, so we'll definitely update you on the new brakes and see if we have any issue. Fortunately for Brian, he was able to go the second half of day 2 and all of day 3 using just the rear brakes. Definitely made for some hairy situations, but we still had fun. The lever made it a little bit difficult for Brian though. That lever's kind of unnaturally high. I would say that the brake lever on most four-wheelers is unnaturally high, so I wouldn't really knock the Outlander on that. The Sportsman is unnaturally high. I don't use it very often, and it's instinctual for me to use it because I ride motorcycles and stuff, and I'm used to using that brake. But on the four-wheelers, for whatever reason, it feels illogical. So can't really gig it on that. It worked. It got Brian through a day and a half of super fun ripping out in West Virginia. So it is what it is. So to recap, power for days, premium features like the intelligent throttle control and the tri-mode DPS, suspension tuned for aggressive riding straight out of the box, and tires that we absolutely love. The Outlander 1000R is definitely much more impressive than I thought it was going to be.